we're in a world where people are always thought, well, what do you do? They ask you the question, you go to a networking event, what do you do? And then you respond, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant. But that's not your identity, that's just the title.
What if your business could generate more profit, create deeper impact, and still stay true to your values? Well, today's guest has built a global reputation showing leaders exactly how to do that. Welcome back to the Root of All Success. I am the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 322. My guest is Israel Duran, speaker, author, entrepreneur, and the Visionaries Mentor. As founder of Israel Duran and Associates, he's helped purpose-driven leaders and corporate teams create ventures that thrive financially, of course, that's what we want, but while making a positive impact, which is good. From overcoming a life-changing car accident in 2018 to inspiring thousands across the globe, his mission is very clear. Help leaders leverage who they are to build what the world needs. Israel Duran, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's truly a pleasure.
Well, you've been called the Visionaries Mentor, which I mentioned in the opening. What's the single biggest misconception that visionaries have about turning their ideas into sustainable businesses?
Well, number one, they're in their own way. You know, it's hard to see the label when we're inside the jar. And it's hard to see the forest if we're inside of the trees, right? We have blind spots. And visionaries, leaders, we have blind spots. And what I found is that typically we ourselves can't identify our blind spots. We need someone else to come in from the outside to help us identify what we can't see.
Now, you've been working with leaders all over the world. What was the defining moment that you realized your calling was to help others become the solution?
You know, it was definitely a journey, Jason. It's not a coincidence, by the way, that the episode today is episode 322, because when you add those numbers up, it adds up to 7. And the question really reminds me of when I was growing up. My dad died at 29 years old of a massive heart attack. I was only about 3 months when my dad died. At the age of 7, I would have repeated the cycle and died as well prematurely because I drowned in a pool in Dominican Republic at the age of 7. And that was the moment where I knew that I was given a second chance at life, but I didn't know why. I didn't understand what my purpose was until I grew up. And then I discovered my gifts of helping other people in business and gifts and their purpose. But it was because I didn't know what my purpose was, but I knew I had a second chance at life. So it led me to really make all the mistakes and learn from my failures to finally get to the point of saying, you know what? I'm on earth to help others. And I had to become the man that I typically wanted in my own life because my dad wasn't there. And it's funny because most of the people I work with, they're in between their 40 and 80 years of age. People that could be my mother and father today. So that's where I go when you ask the question. I go to the number 7 and it brings back a lot of memories.
Interesting. Well, your approach is rooted in something called servant leadership. So how did that philosophy take shape in your life before it became part of your business model?
Well, our whole concept is being able to help raise up leaders and helping them serve their market. And it's very hard to serve your market without speaking. So we have a brand, it's called Service of Speaking, because we believe that the highest level of service is actually speaking. And with leaders understand communication at the highest level, whether that's looking to sell from the stage, looking to communicate their ideas from the stage, looking to create connection within the organization, what we found is that everything improves. Not only your individual performance, not only your team's performance, their productivity. And what we've seen is when productivity goes up, bottom line profits go up. And people feel like they're a part of something that's not just about transaction, but more about the relationship and a part of the company's vision and mission. But if we don't communicate, if we don't have that with the leadership, we see the opposite.
In 2018, you had a car accident that shifted your life's focus. Before I ask you a question about that shift in focus, can you tell me a little bit about the accident?
Yes, this was September 5th, 2018. I never forget the date because 3 of my daughters, I have 5 children now, 3 of my daughters were all born in September. And 4 days before this car accident, my second daughter, Annabelle, was born. And I got to tell you, Jason, when I got into this car accident, it was a freak accident. I came out of the car and I felt like something was telling me it was time to release what I had inside of me. Because just like the first question you asked me, I was in my own way. I had blind spots, and I was supposed to release a book a year and a half from that date, and I was trying to make it perfect. I was trying to have it perfect, and it just wasn't ready. But when I got into the car accident, I released that first book within 2 languages within 3 weeks. And that car accident really made all the difference for me because it helped me get out of my own way to release what I had inside.
So how did that accident change your approach to business and leadership, or did it?
Yes, because I was in my own way. You see, I'll tell a quick story. One day I call it the chef who cooked for kings. One day there was this chef who cooked for kings. This was in Europe. And this chef had a famous paella dish. You know what paella is?
I've heard of it. I don't really know.
It's like seafood with rice and a bunch of different spices and stuff. Amazing dish this guy used to cook. And he used to cook for kings and diplomats, right? And the kings and diplomats said, dude, you got to get your restaurant created. Like, this is an amazing recipe. And the chef who cooked for kings was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing it yet because it's not perfect. And no one else can do it but me. That was his mindset. So the kings and diplomats were like, all right, whatever. Across the street, there was this stew chef who had his grandmother's famous recipe as well. But this recipe was maybe like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So it wasn't like a 5-star meal, but it was pretty good. That chef who cooked the stew, he decided to start his first restaurant. Then he had 2, then he had 3. And before you know it, time passed and he ended up having over 15 different restaurants. 15 different restaurants the stew chef had, but the chef who cooked for kings was long forgotten. What's the point I'm looking to make? The point I'm looking to make is it doesn't matter how much value you have if no one can access it. And the car accident for me helped me to get out of my own way to create a product that I can distribute so people can access my value that then allow me to build influence, and then I monetize that influence.
In building your company, what's one time that you had to make a hard pivot? And then how did that pay off?
One time, well, I make pivots every single month, right? And especially, you know this, running the Exiters group and the Exiters Club and having exited over, I believe, 5 different businesses. 10, over 10. Okay. 10 different businesses. So you know this. We always make pivots, right? And especially with AI, I believe one of my biggest pivots that I just made recently was with AI. Because AI, it's pretty crazy what's happening now. It's not the way it used to be 5-10 years ago. A lot is changing. And for me, that was probably the biggest pivot I've made recently in the last 12 months. But it's significant because it's already starting to produce dividends. And I can see where it's going. It's getting very, very scary for a lot of people that don't know about how to leverage AI. But for us, it's exciting.
A lot of entrepreneurs want both profit and purpose, but they struggle to balance between the two. So what would be your advice to keep them from leaning too far in either direction?
What's the number one most important thing is identity. Because identity is the highest mountain where everything flows from. People, they focus so much on purpose, but you can't even have purpose until you understand your identity. I used to be a big baseball fan. You play baseball when you were young? My whole dream was to take Derek Jeter's position for the New York Yankees. And I came close. I met Joe Girardi. I met Bobby Richardson, second baseman of the New York Yankees for a long time. God rest his soul. And that was my goal. My parents are Dominican Republic, right from Dominican Republic. So in the DR, everybody plays baseball. And in college, I went out for the team, and unfortunately, they released me from the team. When the coach brought me into the office and he said to me, Israel, we're deciding to release you from the team, it literally sucked the wind out of my life, because my whole identity, what I thought my purpose, was wrapped in baseball. So the moment they took baseball from me, it was like I didn't have a reason to live, Jason, because my identity was wrapped in baseball and what I did. This is why I'm so passionate about teaching people identity and purpose, because then we understand the difference between the two. The difference between the two is this: purpose will change with seasons, but your identity doesn't change. Your identity stays secure. And this is important, especially with a lot of people in the corporate space, because, and in life and relationships, things changed. Life happens, unfortunately. Life happened to my mother when my dad died at 29 years old, leaving my mother as a widow and her two children alone until I was at least 5 years, until my bonus dad came into my life. Life happens for when, that single mother that's working and she gets let go. And she put everything into a company for 20 years and then now she's gone, right? What is she going to do? If she has an identity secure, she's going to be okay. But if she put all her chips into what she did, there's going to be some challenges. So identity is critical for purpose and profit. Thank you for the patience.
Yeah, well, you've taught leaders how to monetize their expertise without compromising their values. What's the first step that they usually miss when they're trying to do that?
There's this beautiful law that I teach. It's called the principle of impact. And there's 4 specific steps that allow us to be able to gain resources so then we can make an impact. And the number one thing that I believe that people miss the most, leaders, is the education. The education is truly step number 1. And when I say education, I'm not talking about 1903, John D. Rockefeller, the General Education Board, and I'm not talking about that education, even though it's important and college education is important. What I'm talking about is specialized education. It's learning from someone that has already done what you want to do and investing what it takes to learn with that person. That's what I love what you're doing with the Exiters Club, because you've already exited 10 literally different companies successfully, and you have much more experience. And now you help people save all that time by learning from your mistakes. That allows them to gain time and save time with their goal and their traction.
All right, we're going to get back to Israel in just a moment, but first let's thank today's sponsor of this episode, Dub. If you're tired of sending emails that never get opened or proposals that vanish into the black hole of emailness, Dub can change that. With Dub, you can easily send personalized video messages, track exactly when they're watched and how long they're watched, and follow up at the perfect moment. I've been using Dub myself since 2018 to connect more effectively with prospects, with clients, with vendors, and it works. So if you're ready to make your communication unforgettable, go check out Dub at therealjasonduncan.com/dub. That's spelled DUBB. That's therealjasonduncan.com/dub to start your free trial and get 50% off your first 2 months. That's therealjasonduncan.com/dub. Now back to the show. Israel, you've said that identity, which you talked about a minute ago, is the core driver of business growth. So what do most entrepreneurs get wrong about their identity?
Number one most common denominator among entrepreneurs that they get wrong when it comes to identity is they believe that their identity is what they do. Because what happens is we're in a world where people are always thought, well, what do you do? They ask you the question, you go to a networking event, what do you do? And then you respond, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant. But that's not your identity. That's just the title, right? And unfortunately, Jason, what I've also found is that leadership abroad is also identified like that. Like, I'm a leader because I have this title. Or I'm a leader because I have this. But in reality, you're a leader, not just by what you do, but it's by who you are. And who you are has to do with your mindset, how you're thinking, who you're being, right? We're called human beings, not human doings, right? So mental health is important, having a clear mindset. You know, people talk about a lot about affirmations. I'm a man of faith, so I use a lot of scripture and standing in my value, you know, and really renewing our mindset, right? Because you can have all the pieces, but if you don't have the mindset, you're not going to be able to keep what you have. And what I found is a lot of people, they struggle because they don't understand that their identity is not just in what they do, but it's really who they are. And that's affected by how they see themselves.
Yeah, Romans 12, Paul talks about renewing your minds. So I think we're talking on the same wavelength here.
100%. And then Ephesians talks about renewing the spirit of your mind, right? And it's important to have the distinction because renewing your mind is important, but also the spirit of your mind. When I read that the first time in Ephesians 4, I was like, what does that mean? Renew the spirit of your mind. And then I went deeper into the study. And what it means is renewing your attitude, right? And there's an attitude that we have to have so we can be optimistic, we can have resilience and really push through, especially in this entrepreneurship game.
You often talk about becoming the solution. So what's a real world example of a leader doing that well and then maybe one who missed the mark?
Well, real world example, I don't want to get political, but what I'll say is Nelson Mandela was somebody that a lot of people overlook his life because of different reasons. But this man, when you look at his life, he made a stand and he was willing to pay the price. You see, he found the thing that was worth dying for, therefore he lived for it, which was standing up for his people. And when leaders find that conviction, that thing that just it's worth dying for, that's when you actually start to live.
Interesting. Have you got an example of maybe somebody who missed the mark when they were trying to become the solution?
Myself. Growing up, I made a lot of mistakes, primarily because I didn't have a father figure in my life, to be fully transparent, Jason. And people growing up would tell me I would end up either dead or in prison. Well, they were right about both things. I died at the age of 7, and God spared my life. Sent a man to pull me out the water, disappeared. Guy wasn't nowhere to be found. I talk about it during my TEDx talk. And I do go into the prison systems as a chaplain, and I volunteer, and I serve men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, many of them doing 100 years of life in prison, 200 years in prison. They'll never get out. But I had to learn through my mistakes. And the reason why they said that to me as a child is because I was very bad as a child. I didn't apply myself. I was angry because my dad wasn't there for me because he died. And it's helped me to become the person I am today. Like all of my failures, all of my mistakes, I thank God for them because they've helped me to see things differently and they've helped me to understand the pain with our decisions so we can then help others not make the same mistakes and hopefully help heal others.
What is your one key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else in your life?
Understanding Joshua chapter 1, verse 8. The word success, a lot of people throw that around. They just throw it around. But the word success, when you study history and you study the Bible, I'm a student of history, right? And the Bible is not only a biblical or religious book, but it's actually a governmental book. And when you go to the book of Joshua, the only place it's found, the word success is there. It was kind of like God wanted to give us a hint. If you want to be successful, look at this one verse, right? And it says that those that meditate on God's law or his word day and night, and they observe, the word observe means to see and to do. It's the same word that Jesus said when he was on, during his 33-year ministry. He said to his disciples, come and see, right? To observe. He also said that I don't do anything I don't see my Father doing. It's the same analogy with the word observe. So to observe, to do according to all that is in the law. And then once you do, then you'll have. So the equation of success that has helped my life, Jason, has been be, do, have. Be, do, have. In other words, the mindset always comes before the manifestation. People want to have the manifestation of exiting companies, of exiting multi-7-figure deals, multi-8-figure deals. They want to have that result. But before you have that result, you got to have the mindset. Then you have to do, then you'll have. And that's the equation of success.
So how do you personally define the word success?
For me, success is defined by the accomplishment of my God-given purpose, in my opinion, me specifically. Now, for someone that doesn't believe in God, what I would say to that person is it's really not the best thing to believe like you're the only thing, right? Like I think it's good to believe that there's a higher power, right? But for me, I'm a conscious of God because of how God revealed himself to my life. It wasn't like I tried to seek him, to be fully transparent. It was his mercy and his grace that kind of said, wake up, right? And primarily of me having that experience when I died, that was a big moment. And so success for me is making sure I accomplish my God-given assignment on earth so I can hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, come and enter into the joy of the Lord. That's for me, right? And in business, for me, it's an alignment because I serve amazing people and there's so much collaboration that we do. It help a lot of people. And it's just so rewarding. I have the best job. We have the best job in the world, Jason, being entrepreneurs. It's awesome.
By that definition that you just gave of success, do you consider yourself successful?
Yes, sir.
I love it.
I still have a lot of work to do, though.
Don't we all?
You know, Dr. Miles Monroe, who was one of my dear mentors, he passed away in 2014 from a massive plane accident. And he used to say this. He used to say that, and it is powerful, but he used to say that the most wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard, because there are the books that were never released. There are the nonprofits that were never established. There are the businesses that were never launched, right? The projects that were never, created. Because most people, they die with their gifts and they rob humanity. And then he used this analogy and he talked about how Jesus was on the cross. And when you study the history, you'll see when he was on the cross that he said, it is finished. And it says that he gave up the spirit, right? Gave up. Dr. Miles Monroe says that Jesus died empty. And when I heard that for the first time, I said, that's how I want to live. I want to die empty. I don't want to regret not releasing what God has called me to release to this world. I want to be a man that is the best husband, best father, best son, best brother, right? Best friend, best partner. And that's what I seek for. And like my director of marketing said to me one day, he said, and I'm saying this to those listening, Jason, you may not be perfect, but I believe that you're purposed. And that's what it's about.
This audience of The Root of All Success are mostly entrepreneurs. So if you had to dig into all the what you've got in your experience, what's the one best piece of advice for entrepreneurs that you could give?
My best piece of advice would be Proverbs 18, verse 16. It's timeless truth. It says, for a man's gift will make room for him and bring him before great men and women. I'm paraphrasing. When an entrepreneur is only focused on the money, it reaches a point where you're going to make the money. What do you do then? That's when purpose kicks in. That's when identity kicks in. Sometimes, I don't know who this is for, Jason, but I'm speaking to somebody. Sometimes you will be entered into a season of transition, a season of Abraham. This is for somebody where God will then say, I want you to offer up Isaac, not because he wants to take Isaac from you, but because he's testing your intention and your identity. And what he'll typically do is give it back to you. And I believe that season will come to every entrepreneur eventually.
I accept that. I'll take it. Israel, you ready for some rapid fire closing questions as we get ready to finish our conversation today?
Let's do it.
All right. What's one book that shaped your leadership the most?
I don't want to sound cliche. The Bible is the best business book by far. Specifically, the book of John is a great book. The book of Acts. I studied the life of Jesus because Jesus was also an evangelist, a marketer as well. Powerful principles. The book of Proverbs as well. To give a couple shout outs to some other authors. Daniel Presley is a very good author as well. Love his work. He wrote a book called Key Person of Influence, which is really great. Another book called Oversubscribed by him too is really good. And those are just a couple really good books for entrepreneurs.
All right. What is your favorite place in the world to recharge?
Great question. I love fishing. My wife doesn't like it much, but I don't know. There's something, go out and you catch a bass, or I love the nature on that part. And it just helps me kind of decompress.
All right. Last question. If you could mentor any historical leader, who would it be and why?
It's a great question. I've never had anybody ask me that before. I would probably say Dr. Miles Monroe, but I would reverse it and say I would love to be able to pick his brain even more.
Yeah. Get him back. Sounds like he was taken way too soon.
Yeah.
Israel, how can people get in touch with you, man? You got good energy. I think people are going to sense this idea of being purpose driven. How can people get in touch with Israel Duran?
I'm a giver, right? And I love to give free gifts and gifts of value, right? So there's a gift that I would love to bless your audience with. It's called the Online Business Blueprint. It walks through how to take your gifts through purpose and get it out there to monetize more, but also, move with your mission. And that's a gift that I can give to anyone as long as you go to my website, israelduran.com, and you go to my Instagram account and you direct message me the word blueprint, all one word, the word blueprint, and we'll go ahead and send you that gift at no charge.
All right. So go israelduran.com, look at his Instagram, click on that, and then DM the word blueprint. And he's going to give you a gift to helping you figure out your purpose and how you can put that into motion. Israel, thank you so much for being here today, man. It's a good conversation. I appreciate your energy, appreciate your honesty, and thank you for tackling some of the more difficult questions that haven't been asked before. That's what I like to do. I like to hear people say, I've never been asked that before. That's good. Well, thank you for being here, Israel.
Thank you so much, Jason.
All right, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for another edition of JD's Public Service Rants. This is the part of the show where I call out the little things that shouldn't have to be said, but clearly they do. So if you're guilty of this one, consider yourself put on notice. All right, people, listen very carefully. If somebody's wearing headphones at the gym, that's the universal sign for please don't talk to me. If you interrupt mid-set with your unsolicited advice about your form or story about your leg day from 2017, you're officially a gym criminal. Let people suffer in peace. They're not there to socialize. They're there to survive. Well, that's it for today's JD's Public Service Rant. If you've got an idea for one of these, send it my way. Send me a DM. And remember, don't be that guy. I want to thank, once again, Israel Duran for being the guest on my show, The Root of All Success, today. It's an honor to talk to people who have got such a good heart and a good intention in the world. And it sounds to me like he's got his identity figured out, which is a very important thing. If you go back and listen to what he talked about, identity is where it all begins. That leads to all the things that you want to be and accomplish because you are a human being, as he said. But I want to thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, for tuning in here on Spotify, or on YouTube, or on Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you're listening. You know, I don't often do this, although most podcasters do, but I'm going to take just a minute to ask a favor. Could you just take a minute and go leave a review? Hopefully it's a good one, but leave a honest review about the show. Let people know about it, because that gets this show in front of more people, and I get more cool guests like Israel Duran. But again, thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in again next week when I talk with yet another very successful person about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.